Broadcasting live from the SUNY Fredonia campus, we are 88.9 WCVF, the campus and community voice of Fredonia.
Oh, ever since I was a little kid, I dreamed of such a place, yes I did. With mountains of money and rivers of cash, and a pool of coins to make a splash.
Hi, it's Sebastian Spizak, radio business extraordinaire, and you're listening to WCVF 88.9, The Voice.
Money and gold and treasure untold, and all of it for me.
Hey, thanks for listening to WCVF 88.9 FM, the campus and community voice of Fredonia. Stay tuned for more music, news, and entertainment.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another year of Big Blue Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Volz, a sophomore here at SUNY Fredonia, here to talk sports, Fredonia, Bills, Sabres, and everything in between. It is fantastic to be back. It is just about 10 o'clock in the morning. We got a new time for Big Blue Sports Podcast. If anyone remembers from last year, we were in the afternoon. I was 2 to 3 in the afternoon in the fall semester, and then 3 to 4 in the spring semester. But I decided, you know what? Let's have a little fun. Let's shake things up. Let's move things to the morning. So that's exactly what we did. Well, it's fantastic to be back. I figured I'd take the first few minutes of the show to just kind of talk about how things have been for me so far. It was definitely a busy summer, an eventful summer, and dare I make a reference to the Queen herself, Taylor Swift, a cruel summer. Not really a cruel summer. It was a great one. But I did go see Taylor Swift in June. I was there night one in Pittsburgh on June 16th. I was there with one of my best friends. I've been wanting to see her for a handful of years, and we got the opportunity to go see her as part of the Eras Tour. Anybody who listens to WDVL quite frequently, you may have heard me the other night at midnight on Sunday on Harry Heffler's show, Meet Me at Midnight, talking about Taylor Swift. Has nothing to do with sports, but I figured I'd just at least provide the update because it was fun. It was very enjoyable. This past summer was also my second summer as the play-by-play man for the Olean Oilers of the New York Collegiate Baseball League. And it's the second year in a row that the Oilers actually made it all the way to the NYCBL Finals. They were the top team in the Western Division this year, which for anybody who's not familiar with the league, there's 10 teams, and it's split Western Division, Eastern Division. There's 5 teams in each. The Oilers won the Western Division for the second year in a row, and only the third time in their team's history. They've only been a team since 2012. But they made it back to the finals for the second year in a row. Unfortunately, for the second year in a row, they were not able to claim the NYCBL titles. The Rochester Ridgemen defeated them in 3 games. So Rochester was the best team in the league. They were like 29-6 or something like that. I mean, they were incredible all season long. So that's about it for my own personal update. It's great to be back here on Big Blue Sports Podcast. I'm also, and I don't want to forget to mention this because I almost did, I am now the sports director at Fredonia Radio Systems, taking over for our former sports director, Trevor Hauer, who is fantastic, by the way. So yeah, I am in charge of sports now here at Fredonia Radio Systems, working with our wonderful news director, Lee, who you will hear more from coming up at noon on News at Noon. You'll also hear a little bit from me as well. So yeah, it's been definitely a little bit of a change, definitely a little bit busy, but excited for the future and what that holds for this year, and definitely excited to be back on this show. You know, I always had a lot of fun with it last year, and anybody who listened last year got to hear me ramble on tangents about whether it be the Bills, the Sabres, what have you, and excited to continue doing that this year. But first, of course, as I always do, starting with talking about our Fredonia sports. And I'd like to lead by mentioning that right now, we have 3 sports teams on campus who are currently undefeated right now. We have 3 teams because the men's and women's cross-country teams, they were in action this past weekend on Saturday. They were up at Hilbert College. They were running it's a meet hosted by Hilbert. It's in memorial of Megan Sorbera, who was a runner for them, and she was tragically killed in a hit-and-run car accident in 2008. So they have a memorial for her now every year. They run, it's a 5K, which for anybody who's not, quite familiar with the kilometers to miles calculation, that's a 3.1 mile race. That's the standard length for high school cross-country races. College is a little bit longer, but for this race, for the sake of this, they did run a 3.1 for both the men's and women's, and both of our Fredonia teams placed first out of 4 teams. So that's an excellent way for both of Tom Wilson's teams to, start the season. And I did see that actually there were 2 runners that won the male and female Fredonia State Athletes of the Week. It was Josh Walters for the men's cross-country team and Arden Brown for the women's cross-country team, so congratulations to them. The men's soccer team is also undefeated. They've played 2 games so far. They started this past Saturday. They were at Ithaca, and actually nobody scored that entire game. It was a 0-0 tie. Not a loss. Mind you, not a loss. They played yesterday. They were at Chatham Down in Pittsburgh, and a big win for the Blue Devils as Fredonia State took that one 7-1. And that's, an incredibly positive sign for PJ Gondek's team. I don't know that the Blue Devils scored 7 in a game last year, and I don't believe they did. In fact, I don't think that there were 7 combined goals scored in any Blue Devils games last year, which is a testament to Fredonia was pretty solid defensively last year. But that's certainly exciting. And for teams that maybe struggle a little bit at times last year, that's just a fantastic way to start your season. I mean, what could you ask for? You get through your first couple and you don't have a loss yet. That's absolutely fantastic. The women's soccer team, unfortunately, has not been as fortunate. They are 0-2 to start the season, but they've had some close games. They opened up on Saturday. They were down in Pennsylvania for a tournament. Did I say Pennsylvania? They actually, I might not be 100% accurate in that. I keep forgetting. No, they were. I'm getting it mixed up because the women's volleyball team was in Cortland for a tournament hosted by them. The women's team was down at Penn State Barron, down in Erie, that's hosted by Penn State Barron, who, of course, has a close affiliation with Fredonia State. We play them a lot in sports, especially early season. So the Blue Devils were down there. They played against Carnegie Mellon on Saturday, ultimately fell 4-1. And then on Sunday against Baldwin Wallace, close game against the solid Baldwin Wallace team. Blue Devils end up falling 3-2 in that game. Volleyball has 4 games under their belt so far. They actually started last Friday. They had a tournament as well. They were in Cortland. They took on Rowan University, ended up losing in 3 sets. They played 2 games last Saturday. They played against the University of Rochester and lost in 3 sets. But the second game against St. Lawrence was the Blue Devils' first win of the season. They took it in 5 sets. It was a great match. They won the first one 25-13, dominated that set. Second set was really close. It was 25-23. Third and fourth got away from them. They lost 25-17 and 25-22. And then that 5th set, the tiebreaker set, the Blue Devils took it 15-11. So congratulations to the Fredonia State Blue Devils volleyball team on their first win of the year. They were also at home last night for their regular season home opener. They took on John Carroll University and unfortunately fell in 3 sets. And then finally, the women's tennis team, they're also getting started. If you remember, the women's tennis team it was an unfortunate, a tough season last year. They didn't win a match last year, but they had a handful of really close ones. And unfortunately, this past Saturday was yet another close loss. I mean, they've had so many where they've just been so competitive and right in the mix. And that's, I played tennis in high school, so I totally understand. Tennis is just like, it's thought of as a laid-back sport, but let me tell you, tennis can be frustrating. Because sometimes you lose and you look back and it's like, if 1 or 2 points in the entire match had been different, or if I had hit that ball like maybe 2 inches to the right, if it went out to the left, then I would have won. And that's the hard part about tennis, is that literally it's such a long match, but 1 or 2 points can determine the entire thing. And I think that's exactly what the Blue Devils ran into on Saturday. They ended up losing 5-4 to Alfred again. So close, but I have faith in the women's tennis team. And let me tell you, that's, they have a few freshmen. They didn't really graduate a ton last year. So I think that the women's tennis team has a very solid shot at not only breaking their winless streak, but I think winning a few matches this year. I mean, I think that this is a solid team. They went to Alfred and played a solid Alfred Saxons team. And again, 5-4, another close one, just like we saw all of last year. So that's your Fredonia Blue Devils sports update. We'll also get to some Bills and NFL news. Of course, the NFL season getting set to start tomorrow night. The defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs playing host to the up-and-coming Detroit Lions. The Chiefs, as we know, will be without star defensive tackle Chris Jones, who is still in the middle of a contract holdout. And we learned yesterday that Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce hyperextended his knee in practice. As of right now, the Chiefs believe that Kelce's ACL is intact, so they don't believe that this is going to be a long-term injury, but they're not 100% sure yet. They still have to run a few more tests today. As of his status for Thursday, right now, it's up in the air. I'll give you my personal opinion. I don't think he plays Thursday. I've hyperextended my knee before. I did that actually as my sophomore year of high school. I ran cross country in high school for anybody who's never listened to the show before. And I hyperextended my knee, and I ended up missing 3 races, which we ran twice a week. So I was out for about a week and a half with that. But hyperextended knees are so tricky because, you can hyperextend your knee, and you can be ready to go full speed in 2 or 3 days, or you can be out 3 or 4 weeks. That's the type of thing where you just never know because every hyperextension heals differently. And so that's going to be something for the Chiefs to really watch is, okay, can Kelce go if it's like, and the other big part of this is, and it lies on the shoulders of Andy Reid and the coaching staff. If it's up in the air, maybe he can play, maybe he can't. Travis Kelce's going to want to play, of course. But as a coaching staff, where do you step in and make the decision, okay, this guy can't play, despite the fact that he says he's ready? Where do you step in and say, no, we can't have him play because we don't want to risk further injury? So I don't know what the Chiefs are going to do with that. I highly doubt at this point that affects his availability for when the Bills go to Kansas City because they don't play the Chiefs until much later in the season. But still, I think it could be of concern. I mean, this is Patrick Mahomes' number one weapon we're talking about. This is his go-to guy on offense. This is like the one guy besides Mahomes that the Chiefs couldn't afford to lose. So, I mean, obviously, even though, we root against you, we don't want the Chiefs to be successful. You never root for injury, and you don't want a guy of his talent to not be on the field because, and it's the same case with, it's almost the same case with that. I think a lot of Bills fans who maybe like grew up in the 90s or whatever, how they feel about maybe somebody like Dan Marino or, how us Bills fans felt about Rob Gronkowski for a while, that it's like, you can't stand playing against him, but you respect the heck out of his talents, So that's basically the thing, hopefully he's good to go. Not sure. And of course, if I hear anything different over the course of the show, I'll let you know. Of course, the Bills start their season on Monday night. They are heading out to New York, or should I say New Jersey, to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. It's Rodgers' debut, 8:15 Monday night. And I should note that the Chiefs-Lions game tomorrow night kicks off at 8:20, and that'll be on NBC. Bills-Jets Monday night, 8:15 on ABC and ESPN. Of course, for those of us who have Spectrum, Disney and Spectrum are currently in a little bit of a war right now. They're not really seeing eye to eye, so anybody who has Spectrum is blacked out from, ABC, ESPN, whatever. But we do know that agreement has been made, and the game will be shown in Western New York. So that's at least a relief that the local affiliates are going to be able to show the game. So no worries there as far as able to watch the game. As far as on campus, I'm not sure all of what's going on. I believe Willie C's is having a watch party. I'm pretty sure Willie C's is having a watch party. Actually, yes, they are, and they are handing out free popcorn. They're doing that for all of the primetime games, as noted by an article in The Leader, which, by the way, the first issue of The Leader for the new school year prints this morning. You can pick that up at several locations all around campus at any point today. And I had to mention The Leader. Of course, anybody who's listened to the show knows that I'm also involved with that. I am now the sports editor of The Leader, so I figured I'd mention that the first issue is coming out today. And there is an article in there written by Mitchell Horacy about how the FSA and Willie C's plans to handle game days and primetime games and things like that. Well, we know that for the opener, the Bills will be without star defensive end Von Miller, who is still recovering from an ACL tear he suffered on Thanksgiving last year. He starts the year on the PUP list, which stands for physically unable to participate, which means that he will be held out for at least the first 4 games of the season. I've got a good feeling about Von's availability to return. It doesn't quite feel the same as Trey White's did last year. I feel like Von Miller is going to be able to be back maybe like week 6, something like that, hopefully. But we will definitely see more on that. And also, we did learn last night, before we get done talking about the Bills, I did want to mention we did learn last night that former Bills wide receiver and Buffalo native Mike Williams was tragically killed yesterday. He was working in a construction site when, according to John Scott of Spectrum News 1 Buffalo, a steel beam ended up falling on him. He was hospitalized. And unfortunately, Williams did pass away yesterday. He was 36 years old. Mike Williams spent the 2014 season with the Bills. He graduated from Riverside High School in Buffalo and played his college football at Syracuse. So definitely just tragic news. And for the Williams family, all of us are really praying for you, and, just a horribly tragic loss, and a guy that was a fan favorite. He didn't spend very long with the Bills, but, a local guy and definitely a fan favorite. So we're definitely thinking of and praying for his family. Now on to the Buffalo Sabres. Last night, the theme nights for the season were released. The Sabres are going to be wearing their black and red goat head uniforms 15 times throughout the season, and they released some of their the first game that they're wearing the black and red, I should mention, is slated for October 21st when the Sabres take on the New York Islanders. Some other theme nights, including Hockey Fights Cancer Night on Friday, November 10th against the Minnesota Wild. Pride Night scheduled for Thursday, March 14th against the New York Islanders. That is a game that I will be at. I will be sitting 7 rows up behind the net that the Sabres shoot on in the first and third period. Little birthday present there for my sister, which will be wonderful. The two of us went last year as well to the game, and we had all sorts of fun. So we went again this year, and I figured, you know what? Why not sit close? Once in a lifetime opportunity, so to speak. So that'll be a lot of fun. More details on the specific theme night schedule are available on Sabres.com and on their social media. The Sabres preseason begins on Tuesday, September 26th against the Boston Bruins. The regular season starts Thursday, October 12th, when the Sabres take on the New York Rangers. So that's it for your Fredonia Sports Update and your Bills and Sabres and NFL news as well. So the plan for the rest of the show, I'll take a quick break. Then when I come back, I did my fantasy football draft last night, and it definitely went very interestingly. So I want to break down my fantasy team as well later on. Stay tuned because I'm going to preview the Bills-Jets game on Monday night and then finish off with my NFL season predictions. Thanks for tuning in to Big Blue Sports Podcast. It's excellent to be back. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Box of lemons and I told myself I'm losing again. Been a long time coming, I'm drowning and I'm feeling within. Look around here, you know you're not my friend. Long hard look and I told myself I'm losing again. And I showed her the way. And what more could I say? She was the one I'd chase around the sun. If I could just fall away. Oh! Cool water, the fruit trees low. The more that I reach out, the more I can't get you. But I remember you said I do. Everybody now, they all howling at the moon. And I told her it's true. And what more could I do? She was the one I'd chase around the sun. If I could just fall through. to get away. Everybody now think they got the right way. But I remember what you said to me. Everybody now think they live it wounded me. And I told her so. Hey, what more could I do? She was the one I'd chase around the sun. And I could just follow through. And she was the one I'd chase around the sun. And I could just follow through.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. At the tone, please record your message.
Hey, I'm just calling to let you know that you're listening to WCVF 88.9 The Voice.
Welcome back to Big Blue Sports Podcast. So I mentioned before I left for break that I did my fantasy football draft last night. You know, I really thought long and hard about doing my fantasy draft live on the air during my show. I decided not to because I know two things. First of all, I know that fantasy football drafts can sometimes take a while, and I didn't want to run the risk of my draft taking like 50 minutes, and then I only have 10 minutes to talk about other stuff. And the other thing is that I need to be in a certain mindset for my fantasy draft, right? I need to be locked in. I need to be ready to go. I'm not kidding. Last night I did my fantasy draft around like 10 o'clock last night when I probably should have been sleeping. And I put my AirPods in, put my Josh Allen jersey on. I already had my Bills hat on, problem solved. I grabbed my Bills football off my bed and turned my computer on. And I went on Spotify and I went to my rock music playlist. And the first one I pressed play on was Enter Sandman by Metallica. I cranked it in my headphones. I'm pacing around my room. I'm like, I feel like I'm like Josh Allen warming up for a game or something like that. Like I feel like I'm warming up, or like a coach patrolling the sidelines, getting ready for the Super Bowl to start. Like I was ready to go. I was in a mindset. And not going to lie, I was feeling myself a little bit, okay, for my fantasy draft. I'm not going to lie. I took some gambles. I really did. And the reason that I took some gambles is because I just I had a good feeling. You know, you have that gut feeling. I had that feeling this is going to work out. It's the type of thing where if it doesn't work, I kind of look stupid. But if it works, I look like a genius. So my team, because I took plenty of gambles, my team name that I came up with, the Ramblin' Gamblers. And I am so excited about the Ramblin' Gamblers season. So I started with the second overall pick, right? And I didn't really know who to pick because there's a few guys that are up there. Mainly the top three were Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, and Austin Eckler. And I'm thinking, okay, like my thought process here is, okay, I think I'm going to go with either Jefferson or McCaffrey. So whoever the guy who picks first doesn't take, I'll take him. And then the guy who picks first takes Austin Eckler first overall. And then I'm thinking, okay, pressure is on me now. I'm not kidding. For those, 50 seconds or whatever that I was on the clock, I was pacing back and forth thinking, who do I take? Do I take Christian McCaffrey? Do I take Justin Jefferson? At the end of the day, I took Christian McCaffrey. And I know that some people might be thinking, well, Justin Jefferson's best receiver in the league. He's going to break all sorts of whatever. The reason why I went with McCaffrey is that, I don't know, as great as Justin Jefferson is, taking a receiver in the first round of a fantasy draft makes me a little nervous. I just felt a little more comfortable with taking a running back And here's the thing. If McCaffrey can stay healthy, dude can be a top 3 fantasy player. You know, he's worth the second overall pick. I've had him before on my team. He's done very well for me. So I ended up deciding to take him. How the rest of my team shook out, because I had the second overall pick. So it's a snake a snake setup. So then I don't have a pick until the end of the second round, beginning of round 3, and so on. So my second round pick, I decided to go with a wide receiver, and I took A.J. Brown. He was the best receiver there. I think A.J. Brown is an excellent player. He's just going to be such a good wide receiver, one of the best in the league, in my opinion. And then I start thinking, I'm like, okay, is it too early to go for a quarterback? Because I'm thinking, all right, Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts are not that far away. If I don't take a quarterback now, I don't have a pick until the end of the next round. And then I run the risk of missing out on some of the top quarterbacks. So I'm thinking about it. I'm like, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? And then that guy right before me takes Patrick Mahomes. And then I was like, okay, now I've got to take a quarterback. Because if I don't here, all the great ones are going to be gone. So you can accuse me of being a homer. You can accuse me of whatever. I took Josh Allen. And I'm very excited. This is the first time since, I believe, 2020 that I've had Josh Allen on my fantasy team. And that year that's the best fantasy team I've ever had. I swear. In 2020, I drafted Patrick Mahomes to be my starting quarterback. And keep in mind, this was after 2019. So people weren't sure that Josh Allen was really going to be that good. So I took Josh Allen as my backup. So I had both Mahomes and Allen when they were like 2 of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. Rodgers won the MVP, but the 2 of them were unbelievable. So I would go back and forth. I'm like, okay, do I start Mahomes or do I start Josh this week? And of course, every week I started Mahomes, Josh did a little bit better. Every time I started Josh, Mahomes did a little bit better. Like I remember the one week, the Chiefs were playing against the Jets and the Bills were playing the Seahawks. And so I was like, all right, so I started Mahomes. Mahomes only threw for like 200 yards. I think he had 2 touchdowns and threw an interception. And that's when Josh Allen threw for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns and ran for 1 against the Seahawks. I was like, all right, I made a mistake there maybe, but hindsight is 20/20, as they say. So the rest of my team, how that shakes out, I got Allen at quarterback. I got Christian McCaffrey. My number 2 running back, Kenneth Walker from the Seattle Seahawks. Walker had an outstanding rookie year last year. He was just incredible. I feel really good about my top 2 running backs with McCaffrey and Walker. To go along with A.J. Brown, I took Mike Evans as my wide receiver too. Mike Evans, I know the Bucs quarterback situation is a little bit hairy at the moment. You know, Baker Mayfield, there's uncertainty there. But Mike Evans has been a steady hand for the last several years. Mike Evans has had, I believe, it's 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Or he's had a 1,000-yard season every single year of his career. And I know people are thinking that streak may be coming to an end. I don't know. I feel like Mike Evans is still the number 1 in this Tampa Bay offense. And I feel like he's going to be the go-to guy for Baker Mayfield. So I felt good about taking him. Tight end. This is where the gambles really start. I went with Kyle Pitts. Now, Kyle Pitts, of course, was the 4th overall draft pick to the Falcons, highest drafted tight end in NFL history a couple of years ago, or was it last year? Last season, he disappointed. You know, a lot of people drafted him, thought that he was going to be great, and he really didn't do too well. You know, I don't think he had a single touchdown in the continental United States. I think he had a touchdown in the London game, and he had another one, I think, when they played another overseas game, and that was it. But I decided to gamble. I decided to say, you know what? Why not? I think Kyle Pitts is going to have a decent season. ESPN says with a more accurate quarterback, he might be better this year. I'm going to trust him. So I went with Kyle Pitts as my number 1 tight end. For my flex, my 3rd wide receiver, this I feel was one of my most underrated picks of the entire draft. I took George Pickens. I think George Pickens is going to be an elite receiver. If you saw this guy last year for the Steelers with Kenny Pickett throwing to him, I mean, Pickens just has such an outstanding catch radius. I really think he's going to be a special talent. I think I got him. I got him in like the 7th round or maybe the 8th or whatever. For my defense, I went with the Eagles defense. I feel good about them as well. They're a good unit. And for my kicker, I took Tyler Bass. Josh Allen and Tyler Bass are my only Bills that I have. So you can't accuse me of being a homer. You can't accuse me of being a homer. I have more Philadelphia Eagles than I do Buffalo Bills, and I'm not an Eagles fan. My bench. So I've got some running backs. I've got DeAndre Swift and Antonio Gibson. They're just some late-round backup running backs. My backup wide receivers, I'm not crazy about, but with A.J. Brown, Mike Evans, and George Pickens, it should be fine. I took Darnell Mooney and KJ Osborne. Osborne was my last pick. My backup tight end, Tyler Higbee. I actually feel good about him as my backup tight end. I think he'll be solid. My backup quarterback, Mr. Danny Dimes himself. I took Daniel Jones as my backup quarterback. Listen, Daniel Jones, when he was drafted 6th overall by the Giants in 2019, a lot of people made fun of that. And understandably, he was projected to be a 3rd-round pick, and they took him 6th overall. But he has impressed me. To be completely honest, Daniel Jones has really impressed me with the Giants. And, not to mention, seemingly every single year I do fantasy football, my backup quarterback has an excellent year. Last year, I had Jalen Hurts as my backup. And we all know he had a great year last year. 2020, Josh Allen. So, Giants fans, maybe it's a good sign that Danny Dimes is going to have an excellent season. I believe in Daniel Jones. He's my backup quarterback. Now, anybody who may be doing the calculations in their head at home thinking, wait a minute, you're missing a player. I am missing a player. Very observant. Very good. So, in the 6th round, I got to thinking because there was a certain player that came up who is going to be out the first little bit of the season. He's a running back. And I really thought about it. And I decided, you know what? Let's gamble. Let's take Jonathan Taylor. I know that it's a huge gamble. It's a huge risk because Jonathan Taylor, we know, is not going to play the first 4 games of the season. So he's an IR stash right now and one less player for my bench. But if Jonathan Taylor comes back and plays, we know he's one of the best running backs in the league. That gives me a running back room of Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and Kenneth Walker. This is another one of those gambles that I took in my fantasy draft that, okay, if it works out or if it doesn't work out, I look kind of stupid. But if it does, I look like a genius. So I took Jonathan Taylor. I decided to take the gamble. I was feeling it. I actually took Kyle Pitts and Jonathan Taylor with back-to-back picks, and I'm dancing around my room. I'm like, I am taking so many gambles right now, and if none of these pay off, I'm going to look so dumb. But you know what? I figure let's have some fun. I know I've got some guys on my fantasy team that I can trust. So yeah, that's the Ramblin' Gamblers hoping to go for a fantasy title. I fell a little bit short last year. I had a 12-team league. I finished 3rd last year. This is a 10-team league. Fingers crossed I can go for the win. So that's my fantasy football team breakdown. Going to take a short break, and then when I come back, I want to preview the Bills-Jets matchup that we're looking forward to on Monday night. Thanks for tuning in to Big Blue Sports Podcast here on WCVF Fredonia 88.9 The Voice.
Been writing songs about the places I've been, people I've seen, all the people I've been, up and down all them highway tours, country roads zigzagging back and forth. Well, Papa never told me I was ever gonna be a smile on display, bound to the paper, baby, I'm bound to the game. I spent time learning to pick in songs, singing alongs, and I've sang sad, sad songs. A ballad, a waltz, blues, and a honky tonk, just like a stomping tom. I keep rolling on. Papa never told me I was ever gonna be a smile on display, bound to the pain, baby, I'm bound to the game. And Mama never told me I was ever gonna be a smile on. I've been working like a dog, playing to club walls, playing for the melody. The echo wings of modesty, a crushing told me I was ever gonna be a smile on display. Bound to the pavement, baby, I'm bound to the game. Mama never told me I was ever gonna be a smile on display. Bound to the pain, baby, I'm bound to the game. Papa never told me I was ever gonna be a smile on display. Bound to the pavement, baby, I'm bound to the game. Mama never told me I was ever gonna be a smile on display. Bound to the pain, baby, I'm bound to the game.
Tune in to News at Noon on Mondays and Wednesdays at noon, with an additional news segment on High Noon Friday, every Friday at noon. News at Noon gives you your local, campus, and international updates, as well as sports and weather. Be sure to tune in.
And as Chloe mentioned in that promo as well, News at Noon features sports, so you'll hear me again with a brief sports update at noon, as well as our news director, Lee, providing all of the news updates that you need for this Wednesday afternoon. Well, it'll be afternoon after you hear the show. It's morning now. Welcome back to Big Blue Sports Podcast. So I wanted to take a few minutes just to preview the Bills versus Jets matchup, make my predictions, and I also want to make my picks for the Bills season. So Buffalo starts off the season on primetime for the second year in a row, right? Last year they played the Rams in L.A. It was a big game. It was the NFL kickoff game on a Thursday night. You know, it was the defending Super Bowl champions, all that sort of stuff. And the Bills went into L.A. and beat the Rams. This is, I don't want to say the same necessarily because the Jets did not win the Super Bowl last year, but it's a huge game for the Jets, right? It's Aaron Rodgers' debut. You've got Breece Hall back. You know, you've got Dalvin Cook making his Jets debut as well. And you know that the Jets can play some defense. We know that. They're one of the best defensive units in the entire NFL. That's no secret. It was the Jets' offense that really held them back last year. And now that they've got Rodgers, it will be interesting to see how good will he be. You know, last year, Rodgers did not have the greatest year in Green Bay. You know, after winning the MVP back-to-back years, he seemed to kind of regress a little bit last year. And whether that was a product of things just weren't good in Green Bay or Rodgers himself is getting older and declining, you know, that remains to be seen. And I think we'll find out the answer to that this season based on how things go for Rodgers with the Jets and how things go out in Green Bay with Jordan Love. So for the Bills game, you know, one of the keys to the game for Buffalo has to be you've got to limit the mistakes. The Bills lost when they played the Jets at MetLife last year. And a big part of the reason why, yes, Josh Allen sustained the UCL injury in that game. But go back to that game. The Bills made a lot of mistakes that they just couldn't recover from. You know, one of the ones that sticks out in my mind was Josh Allen throwing an interception in the red zone. And that's a thing that all season has to get better. Last year, the Bills did not get in the end zone when they got down to the red zone enough. Nearly enough, they didn't. It seemed like when they got down inside the 20, they were a little bit frantic. They were a little bit shaky. And they turned the ball over in the red zone an awful lot. That cannot happen. I mean, you're 10 yards away from scoring a touchdown. You can't be turning the ball over down there. That has to get cleaned up moving forward. The Bills have to be better in the red zone. And I'm hopeful and optimistic that they will be. So my other main key to the game is that I think the Bills really have to, offensively, I'll go offensively. I think the Bills have to be smarter with utilizing the short passes and attacking the middle of the field rather than trying to go for the deep ball. The Jets have guys like, you know, they've got Sauce Gardner, they got DJ Reed. The Jets are probably not going to give up 70-yard touchdowns. You know, it'd be wonderful if they did from a Bills fan's perspective, but the Jets have an excellent defense. So you've got to almost take a page out of the Cincinnati Bengals playbook and try and utilize those short passes like the Bengals do. Dink and dunk your way down the field. That's one of the reasons why the Bills drafted Dalton Kincaid, is because he's effective at that. Kincaid is, and I don't exactly want to go too deep into the comparison, he's been compared to Travis Kelce by some, not in terms of necessarily talent, right, but potential and, build and skill set and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how the Bills utilize the two tight ends in their offense. I think we'll see a lot of what's called 12 personnel, which basically means you got two tight ends on the field, one on either side, with Kincaid and Knox. I think the Bills will run a lot of that. And I think that Ken Dorsey just has to get creative, but don't get carried away. That's the big key. Get creative, but don't get carried away. Last year, there were too many, it's 3rd and 4, so let's try and throw a 60-yard shot down the field. No. Why are you doing that? You only need 4 yards. Short passes work. They're very effective, and those short passes can break the will of a defense. Now onto the defensive side of the ball. I've been saying it all summer long. I said it last year on the show too. The Bills' defense has got to be more aggressive. They have to take more chances. I'm hopeful that with Sean McDermott now taking over the play calling defensively, that's what we're going to see. Because last year, and Leslie Frazier, I don't mean to speak poorly of Leslie Frazier because he's an excellent coach. He did a lot for our team. He's a good coordinator. He really is. But I think the issue with his coaching style, with his defensive scheme, is that the defenders, you look at, go back to the Bills-Bengals playoff game back in January. The Bengals at one point had, I think it was a 3rd and 6 or a 3rd and 7, and the Bills defenders are 13 yards off the ball. Why? Why are you playing that far back? You've got talented guys on your defense. Trust them. I know the Bills lost Tremaine Edmonds, and that is a key loss. But I think they might be all right with some of the guys they added. The defensive line without Von Miller is going to be tough. Adding Leonard Floyd, I think, was an excellent move. Adding Poona Ford for defensive tackle depth, I also think was a good one. In the secondary, where does Kyer Elam factor in? Who's your second cornerback? Is it Benford? Is it Jackson? Is it Elam? I don't know. Where does Taylor Rapp fit into the equation defensively? There's a lot of questions that hopefully we're going to see answers to on Monday night. Overall, my predictions for the game. This is a huge game for the Jets. It's a huge game for the Bills, too, because a lot of people are counting Buffalo out. I saw Fox Sports 1 the other day actually predicted the Bills to finish last in the AFC East. Last. A team that won 13 games last year, despite the injuries, despite the weather, despite everything else that happened. They won 13 games last year. And they're picked to finish last in their division? Really? I don't know about that. I mean, I know why Fox Sports 1 does it, because most of what, most of what your daytime sports media has become anymore is just talking heads taking turns speaking over each other and seeing who can say the most outrageous thing to generate views and clicks. And I try not to do that on the show. Sometimes I make predictions that are hilariously wrong, but I try to make them from an educated standpoint, whereas I don't think that these hosts do. I think they just say outrageous things for views, but that's my own personal thoughts and opinions on that. I honestly think the Bills are going to win this game. I have a good feeling. I think Buffalo is just going to roll into this game much like they did last year against the Rams. And I think they're going to roll into this game, and I think it's going to be a good one. I really think it's a close game. The Jets are going to play well, and I think Buffalo wins. So let's predict the rest of the schedule. Week 2, Bills at home against the Raiders, a 1 p.m. game. This is a game Buffalo should win, and I think they do. I think the Bills beat the Raiders to go to 2-0. Week 3 in Washington against the Commanders, 1 o'clock Sunday kickoff. Another game that the Bills should, in theory, win, and I think they do. They go to 3-0. Week 4, at home against the Miami Dolphins, a 1 o'clock Sunday game. I will be at this game. I'm very excited. I think the Bills win this one. I think there's a lot at stake for Buffalo. I think that they are out to prove that they are better than this Miami team, and I think the Bills win this game to go to 4-0. Week 5, they head out to London. They take on Jacksonville, 9:30 a.m. I'll be honest, I've had a weird feeling about this game since the schedule came out. I honestly think Buffalo's going to lose this game. I think they lose to Jacksonville. I don't know. I have a weird feeling about it. So they lose. They drop to 4-1. Week 6 at home against the New York Giants. Sunday Night Football. The master Sean McDermott against the apprentice Brian Daboll. I think, Buffalo, historically, after a loss under Sean McDermott, has been very good. I think the trend continues here. I think the Bills beat the Giants on Sunday Night Football to go to 5-1. Week 7, Bills at Patriots, 1 o'clock Sunday game. I think the Bills win this game as well. They go to 6-1. Week 8, Thursday Night Football at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In theory, the Bills should win this game. I think they will. They go to 7-1. Week 9, this is going to be a tough one. Sunday Night Football in Cincinnati against the Bengals. Honestly, I think the Bills lose this game. I think that going to Cincinnati is just going to bring back too many bad memories from what happened with DeMar last year. I think the Bills lose this game to drop to 7-2. Week 10 at home against the Denver Broncos, Monday Night Football. I will also be at this game. I'm very excited for it, and I think the Bills win it. I think they win to go to 8-2. Week 11 at home against the Jets, the rematch with the Jets, 4:25 Sunday kickoff. A lot of people have been picking the Jets to win this game. Hot take. The Bills sweep the Jets. They win this game. They go to 9-2. Week 12 in Philadelphia against the defending NFC champion Eagles, 4:25 kickoff. I think the Bills lose this game. I think they drop to 9-3 here. Eagles are going to be really good. The Bills go into the bye at 9-3, but they come out red hot. Week 14, they go to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs, 4:25 kickoff. The Bills have won at Arrowhead Stadium in the last 2 regular seasons. They've been very good off of a bye historically under McDermott. Let's keep that trend going. The Bills go to Kansas City and beat the Chiefs to go to 10-3. Week 15 at home against the Cowboys, 4:25 kickoff. I think the Bills win this game as well. The Cowboys are going to be a little too cold in Buffalo in the middle of December, and the Bills win this game to go to, what's the record now? Hang on, 9-3, 10-3, 11-3. I lose track, sorry. Week 16, Bills head out to L.A. to take on the Chargers for a Saturday night 8 p.m. game. And I think the Bills win this one as well. They go to 12-3. Week 17 on New Year's Eve at home against the Patriots. The Bills sweep the Patriots to go to 13-3. Then the Bills finish off the season down in Miami against the Dolphins. Now, this could be a tricky game, but I don't think that we see starters rested for either team in this game, because I think Miami will be fighting for a playoff spot, and I think Buffalo will be fighting for the 1 seed. If they play their starters, in my opinion, Buffalo wins. I think the Bills win this game. They sweep the AFC East opponents. 14-3 is my prediction for the Bills. And by virtue of the win over Kansas City, who I think also finishes 14-3, the Bills are your number 1 seed in the American Football Conference. That's my prediction. You can say I'm biased, whatever. That's just my prediction. I feel like the Bills are going to really come out with some fire this year because they're being counted out an awful lot. And I think this Bills team thrives as the underdog. All right, I'll take a short break and then be right back to finish off the show with my NFL season predictions. Who's going to make the playoffs? Who's going to win the divisions? Who's going to win the Super Bowl? We will see. And we'll be right back on Big Blue Sports Podcast.
Job, uninstalling 90s
On the air at 88.9 WCVF. We are the campus and community voice of Fredonia.
Welcome back to Big Blue Sports Podcast. So, to finish out the show today, I wanted to make my predictions for the NFL season. So, who's going to finish where in each division? Who's going to get what seeds? Who's going to go to the Super Bowl? We'll start, let's see, where should I start? We'll start in the AFC. We'll start in the AFC East. As I mentioned, the Bills, I believe, will go 14-3. That's my record prediction. I'm not doing the record predictions for every team because that would just take entirely too long. So, I think the Bills win the division, right, as I mentioned. I think Miami finishes second in the AFC East. I think the Dolphins are still a really good team. I think Miami is a playoff team. The Jets finish third in the division, and the Patriots finish fourth. I'll say where everybody is, and then I'll talk about wild cards and seeding. AFC South. To be completely honest, I feel like Jacksonville's the only good team in this division. I think Jacksonville wins the division outright unless something crazy happens. Second place in the AFC South, I think it's Tennessee by virtue of the Colts and Texans being so bad. Here's my hot take. Third place in the AFC South, the Texans. CJ Stroud, I think, might be fairly decent. And the reason why I have the Texans third is because I have the Colts last, and I don't know. It's not looking good for Indianapolis. That is not a great situation going on there with the Colts right now. The AFC West, I still think is Kansas City's division. Personally, I think the Chiefs are still the kings of that division. Second place in the AFC West, I think it's going to be the Broncos. I think under Sean Payton, the Broncos have a little bit better year this year. Maybe make the playoffs. I don't know. Third place in the division, I think, is the Chargers. My opinion about the Chargers, my hot take has been, I believe that the Chargers will miss the playoffs and Brandon Staley will get fired. That's my prediction. And then the Raiders finish last in the AFC West, and they fire Josh McDaniels. The Raiders right now just kind of look like a mess to me. I don't know. I don't know. And finally, the AFC North, I think the Bengals are still atop that division. I think they win it. The Ravens finish second. Baltimore's a playoff team. I think the Steelers finish third, and the Browns finish last. Listen, Mike Tomlin, no one is going to stop Mike Tomlin from having a winning record. I mean, this guy is unbelievable how he can just somehow produce 500 football teams out of nothing. So I think the Steelers finish third, the Browns finish last. I don't know. I don't really trust Cleveland, to be 100% honest with you. So the AFC seeding, I think the Bills are the 1 seed. Chiefs are the number 2. I think the Bengals are the 3. Jacksonville's the 4. My 3 wild card teams. I think Miami makes it as a wild card. They're the number 5 seed. I think the Ravens make it. They're the number 6 seed. They're my only 2 that I'm pretty sure will make it. And the last playoff spot comes down to a couple teams. Ultimately, this is tough because I'm between a couple, to be honest with you. You know what? For the sake of it, I'm going to say the Jets make it. I'm going to say the Jets make it in as the last wild card, barely beating out Denver and Pittsburgh for that spot. In the NFC East, I think the Eagles still win it. Cowboys are second, Giants third, Washington fourth. I think that's kind of the consensus with a lot of people. NFC South, this is going to be the worst division in football this year, folks. I don't really see a great team in this division. Anybody could take it with 7 or 8 wins. And I think that the Saints, my prediction is that the Saints go 8-9 and New Orleans makes the playoffs because the Saints win the NFC South. I think Atlanta finishes second. Or rather, Tampa. I meant to say Tampa. I think Tampa finishes second, Atlanta third, Carolina last. Listen, Carolina's good, but I think they still need to fix a few things first. NFC West. I think the 49ers take it. I think the 49ers are the 1 seed in the NFC, personally. I think San Francisco takes it. Second place in the NFC West. I think we will see a little bit of a bounce back year from the Rams. I think we'll see a bounce back year from the Rams, and I think the Seahawks are going to dip a little bit. So the Seahawks and Rams are going to be really close for second and third. I think maybe Seattle beats them out by a little bit. And then the Cardinals finish last. Arizona, I think, is going to be the worst team in the NFL this year. And then finally, NFC North. I think the Vikings win it. Some people picking the Lions. I think the Vikings win it. They go maybe 10-7, 11-6-ish. I think the Lions finish second. I think the Lions are a playoff team this year, to be completely honest with you. Third place, I really want to pick the Bears. I really want to pick the Bears, So I'm going to pick the Bears. I'm going to pick the Bears to finish third and the Packers fourth. I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. I'm going to pick the Bears to finish third. I still, unfortunately, don't think Chicago's a playoff team, however. So my NFC seeding, I think the 49ers are the 1 seed. Eagles are the 2. Vikings 3. Saints 4. My wild card teams, I think the Cowboys are the number 5 seed. They're the top wild card. I think the Lions are the 6 seed. And then for the 7 seed, the last team in, it's between a couple. I think the Giants make it. I think the Giants barely beat out the Seahawks. I think the Giants make it again. I like Daniel Jones. I think they're going to be good. So that would mean in the wild card round, the Bills and 49ers respectively get the first round byes. The AFC matchups would be the 2 seed Chiefs hosting the 7 seed Jets, the 3 seed Bengals hosting the 6 seed Ravens, and the 4 seed Jaguars hosting the 5 seed Dolphins. In the NFC, 49ers get the first round bye. It would be the 2 seed Eagles hosting the 7 seed Giants. Ooh, that'd be a fun playoff game. The 3 seed Vikings hosting the 6 seed Lions, and the 4 seed Saints hosting the 5 seed Cowboys. So, Chiefs versus Jets. Aaron Rodgers plays well. The Jets defense is good, but the Chiefs take care of business in that game. Bengals, Ravens. Again, I think the Ravens may put up a fight. I think the Bengals win. Jags, Dolphins, close game, and I think Jacksonville wins it. In the NFC, Eagles, Giants. The Giants put up one heck of a fight. Unfortunately, it's not enough. I think the Eagles win. Vikings, Lions. I am predicting the Detroit Lions to win a playoff game. I never thought I'd say those words live on this show. I think the Lions will win a playoff game. Mark it. They're going to go to Minnesota and beat the Vikings in the wild card round. And then the Cowboys go to New Orleans and probably trounce the Saints as well. So divisional round matchups would be the Bills hosting Jacksonville and the Chiefs at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. The NFC matchups would be the 49ers hosting the Lions and the Eagles hosting the Cowboys. In the AFC, Bills, Jags. Again, I think Jacksonville puts up a good fight. The Bills win to go to the AFC Championship. Chiefs, Bengals, one heck of a game. Flip a coin for who's going to win that. I'm going to say Kansas City wins. So that'll set up your AFC Championship. 49ers, Lions. Oh, I really want to pick the Lions. But I know that I can't. So I'm going to go with the 49ers. And then the Eagles, Cowboys. The Cowboys blow it, and the Eagles win. So the kind of a lame prediction, I guess, for the conference championships. AFC Championship, Chiefs, Bills, but this time it's in Orchard Park. NFC Championship, rematch of Eagles, 49ers, but this time in San Francisco instead of Philadelphia. In the NFC Championship, I think the 49ers beat the Eagles. San Francisco goes to the Super Bowl. AFC Championship, rather. I said NFC. AFC Championship, Bills, Chiefs. I think the Bills win. They get them at home like the 2006 Colts finally hosting the Patriots. I think the Bills finally get them at home. Which means, for like the 4th year in a row, I am picking a Bills versus 49ers Super Bowl. And ultimately, the Bills win. Boom. There you go. You can call me a homer. I probably am. I'm picking the Bills to beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. It's been my pick all summer. It's been my pick since like 2020, to be completely honest with you. But that's what I'm going with. Well, that'll wrap it up for the first episode of Big Blue Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be right back here next week to recap Bills Jets and talk about moving forward this season. I'd like to thank everybody here at Fredonia Radio Systems who makes this show possible, as well as all our listeners at home. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week.
On the air at 88.9 WCVF. We are the campus and community voice of Fredonia.
88.9, The Voice.
88.9 FM, the voice of Fredonia. WCVF. Drive to the west side.